Is Netflix spec the kiss of death? Well, if we're talking about number 10 on the list, I think not, because we have some excellent publisher marketing happening, spiking a new exclusive book by James Tynion IV.
Number 10 on the list, Blue Book number 2, the promotional version. This is an amazingly cool thing because James T. and Michael Avon Emming hosted a special event at the Hollywood Theater in Portland, Oregon, and gave away this book when people watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We are seeing $115 average sales and a high sale of $170. But keep in mind, on eBay where those sales all took place, every single high sale is from the same seller.
I love seeing this. This is some unique marketing. We saw pictures of our friends. Comic Books Will Break Your Heart over on Instagram, posting with James Tynion. That's actually how I found out that this happened. It's this type of affordable marketing that publishers can do that can really just push a title right at release, which this book has just come out. I picked up issue 1 and I read it last year. I'm excited to get the entire run, even if I've already read it all.
Now that we've hit the ground running, you should probably hit the like button and the subscribe button. If you haven't done that by now, definitely get on that. We're here every week. We do this every 7 days. Number 9 on the list, we're talking about the Image 30th Anniversary Anthology, specifically issue number 8, which featured a preview of James Tynion's new upcoming series, World Tree number 1.
The second James Tynion book in a row, because this is all about the preview to World Tree that's coming out very soon. And y'all know I'm a big fan of Jimmy T, but even more of Memetic. And anytime there's an end of the world apocalypse narrative, and that's exactly what we have here. Although we only get a few pages, what's clear is that there is a virus that's spreading through the computer that's causing the demise of everybody.
I haven't read this since issue 8 of this series came out, and issue 11 just came out this past week. So it's been a few months for me. I already forgot all about World Tree, and I want to go into the actual series blank as possible. However, when you talk about this Image anthology series as a whole, it's not exactly what it was promised as being. It's called the Image 30th Anniversary, celebratory anniversary anthology. But inside, there's a lot of stories in here that are just previews of upcoming books that are coming out or brand new stories, when I was personally hoping for something that was a little more reflective of classic Image stories of the past. And you do get a little bit of that in here. For example, we revisit the world of Criminal, which is nice, by Ed Brubaker. You get a little side story of witches in here, which is pretty cool. I want more of stuff like that from this book, not all of the new original content.
This isn't the type of book that a lot of people would get graded, which is why we only found 22 copies on the census. And because it's got an interesting naming convention, it's Image 30th anniversary, we actually had difficulty finding it on the CGC census. So go to the CGC census, search Image, search 30, you click on that and it'll actually show you all of the issues and you can find out how many copies of each there are graded.
An increase of 250% in copies sold. It's the next Onion Club book that's coming out, and it's weeks away from hitting the shelf. I got lucky, and I teamed up with Carnivore Comics with a Bjorn Barends variant. Can't wait to bring that to the comic fam.
This next book is a prime example of how Netflix spec is ruining a lot of these comic books long term. Number 8 on the list, Mech Cadet Yu, number 1. This book came out in 2017. We are seeing a $20 average sales and a high 9.8 sale of $75. Now, the thing is, we had first notification in 2019 that this was going to be turned into a Netflix show. And then we didn't hear anything because, again, pandemic happened and all of that. And then we heard in 2021 that it was going to be coming back as a Netflix animated series. Animated series on Netflix have not been very, very popular. And this whole thing of, if we're seeing all of the episodes at once, is it going to have as much slow burn as something they release episodically? I don't know if Netflix is treating books like this properly.
When the title can be binged, you lose out on that traction like The Last of Us had over the last couple months. And when you look at a book that's been on spec radar for years now, but then you look at the census count, a total of only 32 comics exist, and 9.8s make up 24 of them, an increase of 550% now makes sense because of some of the news that broke. But on this path, I think the Netflix banner has actually pushed this aside in speculators' minds.
The reason we see this book on the list this week is because they just announced a new collection of the entire 12-issue series coming out in shops in May that has a little advertisement down at the bottom that says coming soon to Netflix, which makes sense. That's why we see the book, the original issue here, spiking. The first ever sale in a 9.8 happened just this last week.
The humans have to combat the aliens somehow, and they get help from robots from outer space. We have at the list at number 7, Star Wars 42, the first appearance of Boba Fett, a book that's dropped mightily.
And I think someone may have recently overpaid mightily for this book. We are talking about $280 average sales and a recent high sale of a direct copy for $1,545 for CGC 9.8. We have seen newsstand sales. $2,500 was actually just a week ago, and we had one on March 3rd for $4,500 for a CGC 9.8 newsstand. Those sound high, but not really when you look at all of the information.
An increase of 162%. Mando Episode 3 from Season 3 dropped this past week. No signs of Boba Fett. You know, it wasn't even really about the Mandalorian himself. I think this book is trending because it's dropped so much. The heights it reached at a 9.8 direct market copy was almost $5,000, and that happened in 2021. The heights a 9.8 newsy has hit was $5,300. Not much more than the heights the direct market hit. But like we alluded to before, I think that the climb that the newsstands had affected the direct market prediction, and people overspent.
So with recent sales in the $1,500 to $2,000 range for direct copies, we have to keep in mind that 2 years to the day of this recording, a direct copy sold for $3,999. So the people who are paying a lot for this obviously have some price memory involved, and the people paying a lot for newsstands, it's the same thing. If you are patient and you know what you're doing, you can probably find one for a little less than $2,000.
If you haven't hit the like button by now, I mean, how can you not after that kind of commentary, you guys? Come on. But we're going to talk about number 6. We're going to keep it on Star Wars, however. Number 6 on the list is Star Wars Dr. Aphra, issue number 19, specifically the Sprouse Lucasfilm 50th anniversary variant featuring Bo-Katan on the cover, her first cover appearance.
Featuring Starbuck, we have a comic book that has a cover that has nothing to do with the interiors or the story. This is a variant paying tribute to things that are happening on the screen. And who would have thought that Bo-Katan would have such a prominent role in The Mandalorian Season 3?
I did.
An increase of 450% after Episode 2.
We're seeing $4 average sales for this book with a recent 9.8 sale of $80 happening last week. And when you consider that they just found the Micronaut dinosaur thing from episode 2 or episode 3. I'm not watching Mandalorian, but I know they found some sort of giant creature that apparently you have to tame to become the ruler of Mandalore. So now we're getting all of this Mandalore planet, Mandalorian spec, all this Mandalore stuff is happening right now.
So the real question is, who's going to tame the beast? Who's going to tame the Megazord? Is it going to be Bo-Katan or is it going to be the Mandalorian?
Every month when you see these solicitations, you need to be paying attention to these variants because Marvel and Disney Plus are completely and totally tied in. This is where we're going to see more of these characters show up on comics.
We do so much comic book commentary on our channel, and over the last 4 years, the #1 source that we've used to make our videos is the best comic app in existence, and it's available for Androids and iPhones. You can support the show and better your comic hunt and knowledge by utilizing Code Tom101 on the best app in existence, Key Collector Comics. It categorizes comic books by character, by brand, by genre, and it keeps you up to date on the rapidly moving marketplace.
I know we were just kind of trashing Netflix a little bit ago, but when you consider what we're about to talk about, I think you got to take something else into consideration. We're talking here at number 5 about Punisher, issue number 218. This is the first time that Frank Castle wears the War Machine armor.
Sandman, Lock and Key, Sweet Tooth, The Witcher, all comics that have not performed as well post seeing the screen courtesy of Netflix. So yeah, the Kiss of Death, it's a real thing. With a little bit of an asterisk, because one of the best things they ever did was how they handled the Marvel characters.
You and I did a ranking of our top 10 favorite MCU projects, and I cheated a little bit, and I put Daredevil on Netflix as my #1 and personal favorite MCU thing. So yeah, I think we're correct here in saying that the MCU, Netflix, Daredevil, street level, Defenders level hero stuff, I think that's the best comic book Netflix stuff they've ever done, especially when you talk about the inclusion of Punisher into Daredevil Season 2, which is my favorite season of all 3 of that show. But we're talking about the War Machine Punisher here, with him rejoining the scene, wearing this crazy suit of armor, equipped with all these guns and missiles and rockets and stuff. So it kind of makes sense. I'd love to see it on screen, but I doubt we will.
$50 average sales, a CGC 9.8 hitting $175 this past week. The heights this book reached was back in March 2022 when it hit $500 for Punisher reasons, but more importantly, Armor Wars reasons.
A 283% increase in copies sold, and while we have been talking about Punisher a lot lately, we've been talking about this book since August of 2019, when there was a rumor that Punisher was actually going to be showing up in the MCU in the War Machine armor. And then we had all of this Armor Wars spec that has been up and down and up and down. Is it actually happening? When is it going to get released? So if we do have Punisher in the War Machine armor and it's an Armor Wars tie-in, it's not a safe bet, but there are some breadcrumbs.
An increase of 283% shows us a lot about the collector's interest as it pertains to what they're excited to see on the screen. And I think outside of it being a beloved property from the Netflix days, seeing John Bernthal reprise his role as Frank Castle, I think it's more of a sign that collectors and fans, especially diehard fans who collect this stuff, want to see a more mature take on their heroes. And I think that lapse that's happened over the last years are catching up to the comic prices now.
Number 4 on this list is Detective Comics number 469. This is the first appearance of Dr. Phosphorous, and we're getting a little bit of Creature Commandos speculation here. It was the first project announced during the James Gunn announcement video that he put out. It's been a couple of months ago at this point. But if you look at this list of characters on this image here, the flaming skeleton guy is pretty clearly Dr. Phosphorous.
$40 average sales, CGC 9.2 hitting $150. There was a CGC 9.4 Mark Jeweler that sold for $288, and also an interview with Tom King that's been removed from the internet.
Did you guys know that Tom King was actually a writer in the DTU, in the new movies?
Nope.
Had no idea. So when he said this on the mic, it got my ears perked. This is what he said. The first kickoff, that'll be the launch of the new universe, will be Creature Commandos. And what I like about that, Dr. Phosphorous is on that team, which is created by Walt Simonson, who's maybe my favorite person ever. And he loves Dr. Phosphorous. He created him back in 1977 or whatever. And so I couldn't wait to tell Walt, like, Dr. Phosphorous is going to be in a movie. Hold up, movie? No one said anything about a movie. This book has now just spiked up in copies sold to 567%. Hot damn.
Yeah, that's a pretty big jump. And we only know for sure right now that Creature Commandos is an animated series. So unless he goofed and mixed up his animated series and movies, which would be weird if he's actually on the creative team behind the scenes, he seems to be indicating that Dr. Phosphorous will be making the leap from this show into a movie of some kind later on down the line.
Well, we do have some rumors circulating. Two particular actors who showed up at the Shazam premiere this past weekend who were not part of the cast. Frank Grillo, you know him as portraying Crossbones in the MCU, as well as Ron Perlman. What are they doing there? Except rumors circulating that both of them are going to be voice actors for this show or movie.
The rumors here are saying that Frank Grillo will be the voice of Rick Flag Sr., not to be confused with Ric Flair, and Ron Perlman is supposedly going to be the voice of Frankenstein, which I could see that. That makes sense. He's good at portraying big, bulky dudes with deep, gravelly voices, so that could work.
And this next book on the list is the first comic book I've ever bought from my LCS owner, Russ Bright.
Number 3 on the list, Amazing Spider-Man number 298. And yes, Tom, you are correct. This is one of the first books that he and I exchanged hands. And it's got a special spot in my heart, but it should for you as well, because this is the trifecta. Everyone's looking for Amazing Spider-Man 300, the first full appearance of Venom, but you also have to get 298 and 299, also classic McFarlane Venom tie-in stories. We are seeing $100 average sales and a CGC 9.8 for $750.
Todd McFarlane getting his first opportunity to draw the web slinger, and to his chagrin, he had to draw him in this black suit. But to his excitement, by issue 300, we would see the birth of Venom. Technically, it happens in 299, but I digress.
We see a 120% increase in copies sold of this book this week compared to last week because of the announced David Michelinie CGC signing that is about to take place.
This is not a paid ad. The submission deadline is the 5th. Go grab your books. This gentleman wrote over 650 comic books. He's a legend, and It's a pretty affordable treatment for your comic book. $90 gets you the comic graded, certified with that yellow label, and they're doing a 6-week turnaround time. If you need a press, only an additional 2 weeks for an extra $20.
The Key Collector app is so multi-purpose. I love the fact that you can search specifically by writers. You could actually search by David Michelinie and find out that Action Comics 714 is written by him. One of my favorite covers where we have the Joker with the Superman mullet. And if you want to go extra deep, there's actually a DCU super tough to find logo variant for that same book.
And for me, when I checked out the David Michelinie section, there was a lot of books in there I didn't even realize that he was the writer on, like Venom Lethal Protector, which Tom and I did an in-depth breakdown of several years ago on the channel at this point.
Definitely one of those writers you kind of forget what he was attached to because he wrote so much, including a book that's been down but has trended up until this last month. Marvel Premiere, issue 47, first Scott Lang as Ant-Man, first Cassie Lang. That's a book that's on a dip. That's a major key that's affordable right now that you can send in and get that SIG.
Number 2 on the list, BRZRKR number 1. We are seeing $6 average sales and a high sale of $75 for a CGC 9.8. We are finally at the end of this 12-issue series, and people have been talking about this book since 2021 when it first came out.
Sold over 600,000 copies, hot damn, and we're not talking store variants. We're talking just a big project that was a banger. There's a 1 in 1,000 signed by Keanu Reeves that clearly seems to be the main thing to spec on, especially when you consider that this is like technically triple optioned. I mean, we have an animated series headed to Netflix that's already been granted a season 2 and a live action movie starring Keanu Reeves.
I just can't believe it's been 2 years. This book took 2 years to do 12 issues, which I guess is like 1 issue every 2 months, but I guess there were delays and stuff. It just wrapped up this last week, issue number 12. Wasn't my favorite series in the whole world, but I knew that going in, so I'm a little different. I did like the middle though. Got cool in the middle.
I'm behind on my BRZRKR because of how long it took to come out, but I'm still finishing it. I have every issue, and I'm going to be holding on to it. I don't know if it's worth the spec on. There's a lot of copies that exist, but I encourage the peeps to check out the variants because none of them really stick out more than the other, so you're going to have to really go with your gut as it pertains with spec on these ones.
Comic fam, if you don't want to drop the money on an actual vintage House of Secrets 92, the first appearance of Swamp Thing, do the next best thing. Sign up for the mystery mail call and get this. This is amazing. I absolutely love this. And yeah, it's straight up the original comic book.
That's right, 1 per box. House of Secrets 92. This is a dual exclusive with Carnivore Comics. It's the trade dress, Gabriel Delgado alt perspective variant that we made for the best community in the world. ComicTom101.com. Join the community. You're guaranteed this book and you support the show.
We're at number 1. We made it all the way down to number 1. I told you twice already. You guys gotta hit the like button. What are you doing here? If you don't like the video, why'd you make it all the way to number 1? Did you hit the like button yet?
The most popular trending comic book in the world. Last week, I'll remind you, it was Amazing Spider-Man 129, the first appearance of Frank Castle in the Bronze Age. Well, this week, we have his first ongoing series, the key appearance spiking this week.
Number 1 on the list, Punisher number 1 from 1987. This is the first ongoing Punisher solo series. We are seeing $40 average sales and a high CGC 9.8 of right around $300.
The heights this book reached was $500 back in 2022. This was a great alternative to spec on because this book doesn't get as much love as it deserves, largely because the Punisher's premiere debut happened in Amazing Spider-Man, and there were multiple appearances between then and when he became popular enough to warrant his own lead in a series.
Yeah, the fact that we 2 weeks in a row have 2 separate Punisher keys at the number 1 spot is just more proof that John Bernthal's return as Frank Castle to the MCU proper is exciting people. It's exciting me. I'm excited to see it. And if you look at the wider trending 20 over on Key Collector, again this week, 5 out of 20 of those books are all Punisher related.
Between his debut and this issue, over on Key Collector, if you do a character search, you're going to find upwards of 14 other comics that are considered keys. Some of them are $200 plus, some of them are under $100, but one that doesn't get enough love is the Frank Miller Wolverine-style book that debuted upwards of a year plus before this issue making the list, which is Punisher in his own limited series. But is it a 4-part or a 5?
This was the most confusing thing. Yes, the Punisher limited series from 1986. Incredible cover art by Mike Zack. Issue number 1 said number 1 in a 4-part series. Issue number 2 said issue number 2 in a 5-part series. But then, by issue number 3, it was back to a 4-part series. And issue number 4 even said a 4-part series before they released issue 5 of a 5-part series. Marvel had no idea how many issues they were going to make this Punisher limited series.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. It's very confusing. At least the covers are pretty, but I don't know. They say 4, they say 5. You don't know which one's which, especially when you look at issue 4 and it says number 4 out of 4. You might not go back to the comic shop and think there's a 5th one. Why would you? It says 4 out of 4.
But hey, some dope Mike Zack covers. Like and subscribe, and as always,
Geek responsibly.
Nah.
said comic fam all weekend long at MegaCon. I'm dropping comic books on the floor, but not like on the ground, on the floor of the convention. On Whatnot, the best new place to buy and sell collectibles for $4. I don't think that's ever been done at a convention, selling store variants that are low print for basically cover price. Some below cover price. Use the link in the description. After your first $10 purchase or more, you get a $10 credit. You support the show, but this is a convention you don't want to miss. So don't miss it. You don't even have to fly out there or get a hotel. Come join me on the app and have a great weekend. See you soon.